Live.
Hello everybody.
Let's see if we are actually live. It should be live.
Okay, I hope that we are because today, we managed
Yes,
to
we
get
are
on.
live.
Oh yes, without the technical issues. That's brilliant.
So we can officially say that we know what we're doing now.
Yeah, well, we still have a couple more tools to try, John. So in the future, we might still experience some more issues, but we keep learning. How are you today, John?
I'm good. I'm a tired dad. I went to the Netherlands this weekend to go and see Harry, and I am quite tired because they do a lot of cycling in Peba, or the Netherlands as we call it, and lots of walking and lots of fun. But I'm quite tired. And you?
Oh, you're gonna need a week to recover for that. Well,
Yeah.
I'm great, thanks. Well, as a tired dad, we try to get the best of the garden, the best as we can. Before, I heard that there's like a tempest or something coming and hitting France on tomorrow. So might just be careful and get everything we can inside.
It's so good. Here we go. There we are. Oh, hang on. I just need to click one button. There we go. We
Okay,
are now officially live.
so we were not.
No, because well, we were pre-live and now we're actually live. Yeah. Yep, there we are. We're broadcasting. Your
Okay.
connection's done.
Okay, so I just need to quick. Okay. All right.
We're in
Let's not
business.
have an echo. And so, hello again, everybody. Our discussion that we just started, that was just between you and I.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, all right. Well, welcome to the Two Tired Dad Talk Talent and Tech LinkedIn show. We are very happy to have you today. We have a special guest and we'll tell you more about her in a moment. John,
We
how
have
are you
some
feeling?
exciting. I'm good, but we've got exciting news today.
Oh, yes, we've got exciting
We
news.
have super exciting news today. Do tell.
Oh, well, if you've been on LinkedIn today, see that we've finally announced publicly that we are both partnering, John and I, and launching a business together, which
We
is
are.
called Presage. So, John,
Cheers.
cheers. Would you want to explain and do one of our first public pitches?
Oh,
Like,
you've put that
what
right
does
on the
Presage
angle.
do?
Basically, we haven't nailed down exactly how we would like to position this to everyone, but the idea was born out of the fact that we both have worked in recruitment for a long time. We've both had headaches with data. All of the people that we work with and we know has a headache with data, and we wanted to do something that could help people get the most out of their teams, their processes, and everything by putting all this data together and making sense of it. And that's what we're trying to do.
And so we have a solution around that we are co-building with companies which have an important amount of data and who are struggling with it. Companies, recruitment teams who would like to have more decision power, decision-making power thanks to the data. And so we're helping them through that. So we are building this solution. We are hard working on it, and we already have good achievements. So we're quite happy with that. But we will share more news in the next few weeks/months. We have another news that is a bit related, but it's more about the survey that we did. We did an event in Paris in French with some exclusive guests. It was invitation only last month. It was a great moment, but now we are sharing publicly the results of our survey.
Yeah.
When is that again?
That is next Thursday. And if anybody wants to come and join, I think we're up to about 115 or 120 people now. I've just sent the link in the comments.
Excellent.
It's good. We're going to put on a good show.
So we will share the results of our survey on how HR and talent acquisition leaders use data to make better talent decisions. These results are never seen before. I mean, this is our proper research because this topic has never been addressed in that way before, and this covers like more than 200 HR and TA leaders over Europe.
Exactly.
So this is pretty
And
solid.
honestly, it's I'm not just saying it because we're doing it, but it is really, really interesting.
Yeah.
It's because it's data that we've collected. It's like over 200 people participated, and there's some really interesting stuff that kind of backed up some things that we thought about and some new things that we hadn't thought about. But now we have our time for our second guest, and we're going to invite Ailish onto the stage. Give me a second. Let's make sure.
Okay, while she comes, let's tease her a bit. So she's a
yes.
Taekwondo champion.
No, not a Taekwondo champion.
No.
She worked as she was working in the in Taekwondo, and she was working on the conditioning and all stuff like this before.
Yes, and she is specialized in product. And today we're here to discuss what recruitment is missing in terms of data compared to product and marketing with her.
So here we go. Let's get you in. Hello.
Hello, Ailish.
Hello. How you doing?
Hello, we might need to mute. If you've got the other thing on, you might have to mute it if you was watching it to see if it was one of us has got it on.
Not me.
There we go. Okay, it's good now. Anyway, it's fine. My echo's gone. I had a little echo. Hello, Ailish. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you guys doing?
We're good. We're good.
Sorry, there's still a bit of echo, guys.
I don't know who that's coming from. Ailish, did you have another screen open with the? Did you have another tab open for the actual LinkedIn Live or not? Because it looks like it's coming.
No, I don't.
That's weird.
But I don't know if I. No, I don't have the LinkedIn Live open.
When you talk, it's okay. It's just when we talk, it's a bit of a repeat. So we'll deal with it. It's fine. Yeah, we crack on. We try.
Okay, well, that might be a bit annoying in the long term.
Right, we'll ask. If anybody's watching this, can you hear the feedback like we can hear the feedback? Or is it just us that can hear the feedback? Bloody tech. Where's the product manager for Riverside? Let's have a look. I'm just double checking. So I haven't got any other double windows open. Anything else is on mute for me. For you.
Yeah, not on my side either. Yeah, you see, it reminds us of the first days we are doing videos like a few years ago.
I can hear feedback.
Yeah,
okay, so some people are saying feedback.
Yeah. Are you sure? Are you sure it's you don't have another window open, Ailish?
You know what we'll do, Ailish?
Yeah.
If you just refresh and come back in and maybe see if that works, because it looks like it's coming.
Joy of being in direct live.
I'm gonna refresh now. Hopefully, it'll help.
Thanks for bearing with us, everyone. Let's see, because if Ailish goes and if echo's gone. It's gone. Okay, okay, we're back there. Well, thank you for bearing with us for this. We will sort it out. It'll be 2 seconds, and she's back again. So fingers crossed this works. And we did a test before, and it was absolutely fine, right?
Yep.
So it should be fine.
Any better?
Yeah, we're in business. Let's
you,
go.
Ailish.
So Ailish, how are you? Do you want to give everybody a little bit of an introduction to yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm very well, thank you. Thank you guys for having me on. So yeah, I'm Ailish. I work at Flexa Careers. I'm the head of product there. In case you don't know Flexa, we function as a marketplace, a pseudo marketplace really, but on the candidate side, we kind of act like a job board. So helping people find jobs, not just based on what they do, but also what really matters to them and what's going to make them thrive. And on the flip side of that, helping companies kind of properly showcase their employer brand so that they can attract the talent that will thrive with them. My personal background is a bit convoluted. So I started off in academia, did a PhD in exercise physiology, working with the GB Taekwondo team through 2 Olympic cycles. So that was interesting, if very different. And during my PhD, I was sort of also working in the fitness world to support myself through that. Knew I didn't want to be in academia long term, so had a bit of a business idea, which I started when I finished my PhD, and then along came the pandemic. And like everyone, we sort of turned to a sort of technological version of what we had been doing. And I call that my tech revolution. So I went from reaching 300 people a week to 3,000 people a week. And I was like, God, tech is great. So I kind of bumbled along, figuring some tech stuff out, growing my business. And then realized that the business area wasn't for me, but I had fallen deeply for tech. So sort of spent the next 9 months to a year trying desperately to find a role in the tech world, and eventually kind of fell into a product role at Flexa, where I've been for the last couple of years.
Well, thanks for sharing that. That's great.
I love these types of backgrounds.
There's a story, tons of stories behind that. And before we jump straight into the recruitment data topic, you said you come from a physiology background, and I know that data is very important because it's all about measuring the performance and stuff. What did you learn there that you took with you, like working on product, and now when you work with data, are there still like learnings that you got from that time that you took with you?
Yeah, absolutely. You've given me an idea for a LinkedIn post just with that one question. But what doing a PhD in exercise physiology taught me about data product? Yeah, loads of things. So as you said, yeah, physiology, generally science is very heavily reliant on data. So I had to become very data literate. I had to collect and analyze like huge volumes of data, but also make meaning from them. And I think in product, it's all about having data, understanding users, and then making meaning from that. And then further from that, we are working on a data product at the moment at Flexa. We've got 5 years worth of data around candidate demand and what companies are offering in a very data a sort of industry that is very short on data. So I've been, obviously able to kind of apply those learnings of, here is all this data. How do we kind of break it down and analyze it and create it and put it into a system that then you can make meaning from and sort of utilize in ways that are useful. So I think it's actually, despite being a bit of a random path, there are always those transferable elements if you land somewhere.
But there's a lot of this at the moment. Like I always talk about it. It's like the non-linear path, right? And I feel like there is more. We're more able to do this now, and it's more seen. It's not always right. You have to go into one company and you must work your way up in this for the next 30 years. And, it's nice that you can be able to change those and apply those skills that you've got. And honestly, I would love, maybe not for now because it's not the topic, but I always love talking to people who have worked in that kind of elite sport area, like what they take from that eliteness and then how you apply that to business. I remember I worked with a company before, and there was a lady, she was a lawyer, and she had won 2 gold medals for rowing in Team America. And you're like, wow. Just what an impressive, like, it's so impressive.
Yeah.
I just love all those learnings.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel very strongly, it's obviously a little bit off topic, so I won't say too long, but, in the hiring sort of process, which is kind of relevant to what I do now, that actually, if there is a way that you can understand kind of if someone's background isn't like perfect, but understand the sort of transferable skills and kind of like all of the different learnings that they have from different backgrounds and assess people a bit better, like, you don't need to have necessarily a sort of strict formal background in one area to be successful in that area. And I think, as you said, that is the way we're going. It's just harder to do at scale, which is the tricky bit.
Yeah. So, that's great to hear about that. But, all of the people who could watch this video, they have the same question that we have. And that's the one that made that we were really interested in your opinion. Why is talent acquisition so behind in terms of data compared to what we have in terms of product or sales working with data? And I'm not talking only about the tools, but the culture, the way decisions are made. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah,
because you have a fit in both worlds.
Sorry? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And I think in product, you obviously run the product side of things, but you're very involved in sales and marketing at the same time. And specifically in my role, I'm also thinking about talent acquisition and the kind of HR space. And I think it really boils down to kind of two things. So one, I think, is like the culture, right? So the culture of sales and marketing has always been around numbers. You know, what you put out, you expect to get that back in return. If that's from a marketing perspective, you may run big campaigns, but you want to see the numbers come in, and that wants to kind of equate to revenue down the line. From sales, obviously, it's always about every effort that you do, you're looking at the revenue, you're looking at the conversion rate, you're looking at the kind of how far you're moving people down the pipeline, down the funnel. So they have always had a huge history of that kind of being very data focused. I think product indirectly is marketing and sales kind of together. Like you're doing indirect marketing and indirect sales through the nature of making a product so good that users want to use it, they want to convert. And I think especially in tech, you have this volume of users, you have all of this data around them, and it's not enough to interview 10 people and say, like, what do you like? You need to see the behavior through the numbers. So I think like the very culture of those kind of sectors means that data is just kind of inherent, whereas HR has always kind of in the past been seen sort of like as a back office function in a way, whereas marketing, sales, product, they are making money. HR and talent is spending money, even though we know that's not really the case, and that like you can't grow a business and you can't make money without people. So yes, you're paying them, but they're the ones that are the business. But I do think this kind of culture and the historical kind of notion of the kind of talent function is around just getting it's people-y, right, which doesn't really align with the kind of data side of things. So I think that's one part of it, although like, you know, obviously over the last few years massively more and more, like I think that kind of HR function is becoming a key strategic part of a business. It's just not caught up from a data perspective. And then the second thing I think is the access to data. So again, probably because of the culture, there's just not as much kind of data available and around. I think also, you know, the personal data element of things, like where do you collect data about your sort of candidates or the people sort of involved or even employees. There's so much, you know, concern around bias and different things like that. It's really hard to kind of collect and collate that data anywhere centralized. You know, I having a conversation, we went to a roundtable sort of around data, and like the kind of resounding thing was like, we struggle so much to get information from candidates applying. So we may have thousands and thousands of candidates applying to roles over the course of a year in a big company, but only 20% of them are giving us information about themselves. So how do we understand, you know, our impact on diversity or anything like that? Because we simply don't have access to the data. Another one, even in-house, you know, it's sort of not collected. And I don't know if this is a function of the kind of culture or if this is again a sort of more sort of protective thing. But I spoke to a woman who wanted information about part-time role uptake in other companies, because although her huge consultancy offered part-time, they didn't have the data about who was using it. So she was outsourcing uptake on part-time because to understand whether or not that was a good thing that they were running, instead of having that data in-house. So I just think like that access to data is just not there. And I think my kind of experience coming obviously from a kind of academic background, and you know, I also have a degree in statistics, and then obviously working in product, like that was my sort of one of my first thoughts of working in the HR sort of space of like, how do you guys function without data? How do you make decisions? How do you know how to, you know, make changes? How do you know how to reach the best talent, like without any data to kind of inform that?
And then it's also the data. Thanks for sharing all that. The data that they have access to is often super incomplete as well. So people are making we talk about this a lot, the difference between correlation and causation, right? Like just because two things look like they're correlated doesn't mean that they're actually linked. And
exactly,
I think that also one of the biggest things is there's a huge skills gap right, between for HR. As you said, historically, HR is a compliance thing. It's there to protect the business and it's to stop execs going to jail, right? That's basically what it was there for,
Yeah.
right? Let's be honest, right? There's no other function of them. That's my personal opinion, disclaimer, sorry, whatever. But that's how I see it. But now we're starting to have a rise of like people ops and rec ops and people who might understand the like how all these tools go together. And what we found was that what percentage was it, Jean-Marie, from our study? Because we did a study of over 200 TA and HR leaders across Europe. And how many of them said how many of them said it was like backing up what Ailish just said about the number of people that couldn't access the right data and all that stuff? It was ridiculous, wasn't it? Was it like 70 or 80%, something like that?
It was one of the main. I don't have the.
I can't get the exact thing.
We'll begin and we can give it later in the comments. But it was one of the two biggest main pain points.
That's exactly what you were saying. And do you think? So one of the things I wanted to ask you was about the way it's integrated. You know, like do you think that's a problem? The fact that it's either that people can't access the information because they might not have permissions or they don't know where it is, or do you think it's more the fact that people are buying tools and they can't all connect? Where do you see that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's both. You know, like of the places where you can access data, if you are in a company with the resources to have something, you know, access to something like LinkedIn Talent Insights. And a bit like what you were saying with the kind of cause and effect, what that does is really tell you where people are who do certain jobs and what their demographics are. But how do you make decisions about that? You know, is it that there are no people or women in data science in, you know, Northampton, or is it that there's no jobs there? You know, like, and kind of like how have things evolved over time? So I think on the first instance, to your kind of cause and effect point, it's so hard to unpick those things with the data that is available. I think in terms of, I actually think that the biggest challenge is just actually having access to complete data sets and to data sets that make sense. You know, also, again, and this is interestingly a problem that happens a lot in elite sport, actually, is like, as you said, I was, when I'm working with Team G, I'm collecting thousands of data points every single day. But those data points by themselves are not really enough to make good decisions and predictive points about anything else. What I actually needed was like all combat sport athletes in the UK. I need data, like grand data around that to make predictions. And I think it's the same in the talent space. It's not enough for me to understand just my employees, even in a huge company. It's not enough for me to understand just the people who've applied to my company. I need to understand candidates in general in the region that I'm working in. And without that kind of broader data, like it's not granular enough to really pull insights from that. So I think that's a huge part. And I also think the ability to, like, where do you get that data from? It's already so biased. So if you're only looking at people who have applied to your company, they already know who you are, they already are engaged with what you do, and they already like you enough to have applied. So you've already like narrowed down a huge amount in terms of like the kind of population that you're looking at. And obviously it's the same thing with your employees. They're already employed there. So like, actually, do they just kind of, you know, like having a job, or do they really like what you offer? You know, so it is so difficult to understand.
Can we just pause on that, please, Ailish, before we go too far? Because I'd like to dig a bit on just a couple of things that you said, because if especially because we also have French people watching, and I want to make sure that we pass the right information. If I get that correctly, what I understand is that you're saying that internal data really has value if there is a market comparison. Am I correct? So
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so we can compare it to itself in time, but compare it to a population. This is actually, you know, you're talking about statistics. I'm a work psychologist myself, and this is something that I learned very early, is that when you're talking about data that is related to humans, you always compare to a population because it's so complicated and there are so many variables that the main way to make your data more reliable is to have more data to compare it to.
Exactly.
Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely. So even the kind of longitudinal aspect, yeah, you can look at your employees over time, but how many things have changed about the workforce over 5-10 years that like actually comparing is not actually like with like anymore. It's much better to have a huge volume of data of companies who are similar in certain elements that offer certain things and try to understand that impact on employees. So yeah, I think it's just a really impossible kind of situation that most people find them in.
That's
So
super interesting. And I had another question. Sorry about that, John. We didn't plan that, but that's very interesting. And
I prefer this.
we're talking a lot about data points, and both John and I are using this definition a lot. We know what it means, and we're using it with the companies we're talking to. And from time to time, some people tell us, but what really is a data point? And we came up with some definitions, but I think that not everybody is at his, and I hear that that's something that you use a lot. How would you define one single data point? What would you say?
I was like, I hope you don't ask me to define that on the spot now.
No, but
I'd
maybe,
rather hear your definition.
if you were asked that question, like, how do we define that's a data point and not just data or just an ensemble of data?
Yeah, I guess it depends. So a data point really in theory is anything. So anything could be a data point, but where it's relevant is I think what you're kind of getting at is like what makes a data point relevant to compare against other things. And I think it's the context of the data set in which it sits. And that kind of comes back to that point. You know, okay. And I think I also think data literacy is such a huge thing. We're not taught really what to do with data in school. Like I don't remember ever learning that. I learned it separately in university. I think it really does a huge disservice because, as I said there, you know, we could look at 10,000 people who've applied to my company in the last 2 years, for example, and be like, oh, let's try and understand what this says about the candidate market, forgetting that that's missing that's hugely biased already. And that's so that the value of any data point within that set completely depends on that context and understanding that bias. So I think that's kind of what you were getting at, but correct me if I'm wrong.
So my takeaway, thank you for answering that. And my takeaway from what you say is that a data point definition depends on the sense you're trying to make out of it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly that.
And that I'm good.
And it's so true. The thing that there was a lady called Annie Gascoigne, and she's an organizational psychologist. And the thing that I got from her the most, whenever I used to speak to her, was just whenever we said anything, she'd go, "What's the context? I need more context. I need more context. I need more context."
I'm known for this.
But it's
Flexa.
so
People are always like, hey, can you give me this? I'm like, what's the context?
Yeah, but then people can find that frustrating because they're like, right, I need it now, right? And it's like, well, yeah, but let's not make an assumption off of something that's like, it's not really going to help you in the long term. And I think that's where, if you look at stuff, if we go back to the point of marketing and sales and product and how it's different to recruitment and people data, they have all the right tools. They're all connected. As long as the CRM is up to date, they can retarget people. They can do tests, and they have a much more scientific approach to it than HR. I think HR at the moment, if you're in HR or people or recruitment and you're talking about data, you're still in that early adopter phase. I really believe that. Or you might be, depending on the stages of awareness, you might be very early stage, or you might be understand what it is, but you might be measuring the wrong thing, right? Like everybody measures retention because it's the only thing you can measure, right? Like, but what outcome are you hoping to get from that, right? What does that really tell you? It might be a good thing, it might be normal, it might be seasonal, we don't know, right?
Exactly. But also like retention by itself, are you retaining good people?
Yeah.
Who are you retaining?
Yeah.
You know,
Is it because you've
in
got
and
a
of
toxic?
itself, what is it actually telling you?
But how many times
Yeah,
have you seen it? You have a toxic culture, and the most toxic person's now managed to work their way to the top because it's the only one who can stand it, right? And everyone else that's good has left, and then you're just left with this like toxic organization. So
yeah, and actually, even on that, like one of the questions I get asked a lot is like, how should we measure quality of hire? And I think it's, I mean,
don't go there with John. Right? Don't go there.
I hate it. I hate it.
Yeah, well, I get it, and but like I try to, you know, I don't know what the answer is if I'm totally honest, but I guess my kind of pushback on that is because often it's like, do they pass probation? Do they stay in the company for X amount of time? Like my point is always like, do you want mediocre people sticking around for a long amount of time, or would you rather have some amazing people who are gone in 2 years? Yeah, like it's a pain, you got to hire them again, but they had a huge impact while they were there. I feel like it's the wrong questions that are being asked.
We have got something. Honestly, we have got a show coming up in a few weeks, and it's all about this. So we kind of evolved. So for me, quality of hire in the bin, right? Done. I'm not interested in this right now. Then we've moved on to a little bit of like, is it time to productivity? And now we're kind of evolving a little bit more because Jean-Marie is awesome at finding research stuff, and he has found something, and it's all about the impact of the individuals and the stuff like this, which is super cool.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing that. And by the way, this is one of the topics that we wanted to address with you: the impact, the outcomes, and you coming from again, that's backgrounds working in with sports people as well. Said, how can you build something, a performance tracking system that would be based on the outcomes? What would you be your views or advice on that?
It's hard, I think. I think anything with people is hard. Like even what you were saying there, time to productivity, define productivity, right?
Yeah.
Like what even is that? And that also depends on context. And is extremely subjective. I think the impact is really important. The problem, and I think impact is really the answer, right? The challenge with impact is that you have to be really good at setting out what is impactful. And so many companies and organizations focus on input and output, and they forget about outcome, or they forget about impact. And the reason being that it's really hard. You have to have a really crystal clear strategy. You have to have a really crystal clear like set of objections of things that are important to improve within a team, within a role, and then you can measure impact. Like, are these targets being hit, X, Y, and Z? But that's actually really, really difficult to do. So I think people do default to the more easily measurable things like, yes, this person has spent 20 hours on the phone or whatever.
The recruitment agency metrics. But this is the thing, this is why something my old CPO Helen, she always used to say, focus on the outcomes, not the outputs, right? Like get those, focus on that first. And then and I think that's, like you said, it's hard, and it's constantly having that culture of the fact that the impact can evolve depending on the context. If you're going through a growth period, the context is going to be very different to COVID's just hit, or we really need to raise, or we need, we're struggling at the moment with something, and you have to have that adaptability and have that framework in place to be able to, and culture to be able to change and adapt to as and when things change. You can't just be like, right, we're always doing it this way, this is how we do it, right? Like the context.
The only outcome.
Exactly.
Context. Absolutely. And I also think like I feel quite strongly around I think there's too much focus put on retaining talent at times, but like different contexts and different phases of companies require different things. Like if you're in a startup phase, you might need different talent, and they might not want to stay when you're then in scale up phase. In scale up phase, you need different, like different phases of companies need different things, or when high growth periods or like different things are going on, actually you need different types of talent. And so I don't think turnover is necessarily the bad thing. I think there needs to be more focus on, and I've gone a bit off topic here, but a bit more focus on the type of turnover. So like,
no, but it's honestly, Ailish, we were talking about sales, right? So if we can contextually apply the sales numbers and we look at churn, right?
Yeah.
You have like I've
Yeah.
done a lot of sales stuff, and you look at good churn and you look at bad churn, right? And that's a good lever and a bad lever. It's no different if you ever have a founders agreement. You have all these different types of ways you can leave the business, right? Like, but we don't really have that in employment contracts. We don't really measure that, right?
100%.
But I really believe that even just doing that was that. And why was it a bad hire? Is it a bad hire? Obviously, again, like you say, you have to do the definitions of it. And I think that can help you learn. And people don't do those like exit interviews properly, or people don't even want to do an exit interview when they're leaving because they've just had enough. They just want to get away, right? Or they've had a good leaver and they want to give you the feedback. So you're not always get these mechanisms you can
and that's biased. That's
exactly.
Exit interview is very biased because you know you don't know, even if you're leaving, you don't know how it's gonna react. So you have some people who just like retain a ton of stuff over the years and who just lash out.
Or they say nothing can go to Glassdoor and write it on Glassdoor afterwards.
They don't want to get in trouble. They want a reference or something. So
which is, I mean, I think inherently, coming back to that first question, it is hard to collect actual information from people, right? Like in product, we do user research because sometimes you will be given a signal and a direction. That's kind of what you're hoping for, to explore more. But ultimately, you don't release a product until you've A/B tested it and you've gotten the kind of actual objective behavioral data about how people are, how people interact with this. When you're dealing with things like exit interviews or, it's just people information or the quality of a hire, their productivity, like, there's so much subjectivity around that it's really, really difficult to do. So actually, and I don't think you should definitely still do that. It's always, worth getting a feel and talking to people and kind of setting up that kind of subjective stuff, but it needs to be balanced with objective data, and that's how you make meaning. Like B2B salespeople, they're talking to their customers, but they're also looking at that funnel, at that pipeline. Oh, actually, we're losing way more between this step and this step. So what's happening here? What do we need to do? Right? So it's a balance of the two. And I am really trying to hammer this home with our kind of Flexa customers. We break down their sort of dashboard, their data dashboard, into 3 elements of a funnel, the same way as you do in marketing. So you've got awareness, you've got engagement, you've got kind of conversion, or like kind of clicking, I guess properly moving through. And because so you can actually identify and diagnose, do people care about, like, are they interested, are they aware of you? Then, like, is what you're offering engaging? And then do they want to come and explore that more and kind of get involved and see where you're having people fall off and different types of groups fall off. So it's a combination of both. Yes, talking to people and understanding, but also seeing the numbers in action.
Yeah, I think the thing is though, the people that are front of house or like on the front line, they're the ones that get your immediate. They're the ones that can pick up on the stuff a lot faster than the data will tell you, because everything's always a little bit in lag, right?
Yeah.
And I wrote a piece in my newsletter last week, and it was all about, I don't know if you like Formula One or not. Sorry if you don't like Formula One, anyone, but I love it. And there's a guy called Adrian Newey, and he is like the best chief engineer ever, right? The most unbelievable one. And everybody, like, he's very old school. He still uses a pen and paper, brings the stuff. And what he does, he still sits in the driver debriefs. That is unheard of on the track. And he is the most high performing one. But what he'll do, he will listen to what they're saying. And then because he has all the context, when he goes to look at the data, he can be like, well, actually, that actually makes sense about what he said. And he can dig into those things. And he'll come back a week or 2 weeks later and he goes, well, that problem you had, take it around for a few laps. And they're like, oh my God, it's fixed. How the hell did he do that? He's a magician, right? And it's that type of stuff. So as you say, it's that balance of the two, right?
And that's why data alone is not enough. And you need to know the job. And basically, that's, we're nearly the end. So allow us to say that is the project that we're working on, Presage, is exactly based around that, because both John and I are former recruitment managers. And so when we work with data, we make sense of it first, and we're training the tool to do that as well. We don't believe that the tool is enough. That there's always a need for context, and so data acculturation is key.
Yeah. And I think especially if you are not a data analyst or someone who's expert at like taking a data set and exploring it. I think
Well, the problem is
with the question.
you can make the data say
know.
you can make the data say
So
everything that you want.
Yeah. Exactly.
My brother's in
So,
politics, and he
kind of
always says
starting.
that. My brother is obsessed with politics, and he goes, "If you just see the data and the way, it's all about the way you present that data and the impact it can have on the decisions. You can turn one bit of data to be good or bad, whichever way you look at it, right?
Yeah.
But no, this has been awesome, Ailish. Thank you so much for coming on. I feel like we could have done a
Thank you for
full-blown
having
hour and a half podcast on this. This was really, really interesting. Thanks for coming
it
on.
was great.
Thank you for being there, Ailish.
And if anybody wants to get in touch with you, where's the best place to find you or talk to you and get in touch?
LinkedIn.
Yeah,
probably. Yeah, I can
all right.
send it over, but it's just Ailish McLaughlin. At least I don't have a very common name, so that helps.
Yeah, I will. What I'll do is I'll pop that in the.
I'm sharing that in the comment.
Oh, I've already done it. Oh, sorry. You look at. Well, there we go. Done. Sorry.
Okay, perfect.
Done. Well, thank you very much, Ailish.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
That's all right.
Thank you. Have a wonderful afternoon. Talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Bye.
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 Well, that was interesting, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
I love talking to people like really into data, like properly interested, get it, working with it, and understand the subject matter of it as well. Because too often, how many products do you see that are built by engineers that don't get recruitment?
Tons, but that's not the engineer's fault. It's just there's not enough knowledge of the job itself.
Yeah,
how it works.
Yeah, so just to so thank you for everybody who stayed on.
I have a question for you, John. So what would be your main takeaway from this discussion? What will you bring with you? What did you like most?
I think it gives me some more confidence and conviction in the fact that we really have to balance data with the human element, right? I think that's the thing that I take away from what she's saying, and always making sure that we do question what's being asked to make sure that we have the full picture and the full context. So we're not just giving information for the sake of it, right? We're not just giving bits of data and hoping that people are going to make decisions based on incomplete data. I think that's what I take.
Absolutely. Well, kind of same as you, in the sense that if we want to go up to being able to make a story with the data, like do some storytelling, because you need that in the end. When you have data, you make decisions, but you also have to talk to people about your data, whether it's through reporting to your manager or your team, whatever. You need to make the data talk. And if you want to have a good story, you need to have a real story and not something that you're just trying to interpret, but to have enough data and to know enough the job to understand the impact out of it. So I think that insight and data must always come in pair,
Yeah. And if you're really looking to improve your game, to be more strategic, as Ailish was saying, the being data literate is super important, and that doesn't mean you need to be a data scientist, right? That's not what I'm saying, but just have enough of an understanding that you can interpret the right things. You have Jeremy watching.
Hello, Jeremy. Very nice to hear from you. Yes, and so if you want to become more literate about data, well, we mentioned this event that will happen on October 17th during lunchtime. Exact hours will depend on where you are based in Europe, but it's in lunchtime. So again, it's on presage2024.eventbrite.com. Please come. It's public, and it will be our last event on the topic.
And it won't be recorded.
It's one already.
Yeah, we're not recording it. So
no replay. If you want the information, it's now.
Yeah, exactly. We've got 45. We had 45 TA leaders and HR leaders come to the in-person one in Paris, which is it was really nice. It was really good to see and to talk to people about that. And the online one so far, I think we're up to about 114 people signed up, which is pretty cool. So we'd love to see you there. One more thing. What are we going to talk about? What are we talking about next? Who have we got on next time? Pierre.
Oh, we have Pierre Arnaud Bouillet, the head of talent acquisition at Back Market. Back Market is, for those who don't know, is a marketplace specialized on. I hope that I'm gonna pitch him well because his pitches it's so good. It's a marketplace specialized on refurbished goods and devices, and it's a French company. We've partnered with them during our last event, so we had the chance to see their offices, which are so cool, and they are growing. They are global. It's one of the companies that us French people are very proud about. And Pierre Arnaud is someone who is super, super interesting, and I have tons
We're
of stuff
talking to him tomorrow to define the actual topic, because we could probably talk about 20 different things, but
Yeah.
we'll share that. I'll share that tomorrow on here, and you can.
So
we
I'm
can get you
super
signed up
happy
for
to
that.
have him. Yeah. So thanks a lot to everybody who listened to or who watched this Two Tired Dad Talk Talent and Tech show.
And stream it without a problem. Yes.
Yes. Almost.
Almost didn't, but it did.
Next time we will start on time. We promise you that, guys. Thank you. And it's been a pleasure. Thank you, John.
Yeah, you too, buddy.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers, everyone.